welcome back to my weekly NFL video. I've got quite a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. Alright, let's start with the headlines. First, the Cardinals are 2 catches, a flag, and 4 yards away from being undefeated. Here, let me show you. If this pass is caught right here, and this ball was just a yard further into the kickoff landing zone, and DeMercado didn't drop it at the 1 yard line, and this catch wasn't made by Tucker Kraft, instead of the Cardinals being 2-5, they could be undefeated. Okay, most of these games would not end differently if this happened, but it just goes to show you how close the Cardinals are to actually winning some of these games and being in the run for the playoffs if they were just a tiny bit more disciplined. The Tua era might be over. See, Tua has not been playing well. He played well his first few years, but after those concussions, the Tua Tagovailoa era is probably going to end, and it's probably taking the coaching staff and much of the rest of the team with it. Tua is not a good quarterback. He is one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the entire league. Next, only the top 1 teams are failing. The last 3 weeks, the team that I have put at the top, winning the Super Bowl, has lost the very next game. The Bills lose the very next game against the Falcons. The Lions, they lose the very next game against the Chiefs. The Buccaneers, they lose the very next game to the Lions. It's really hard to tell who's the top 1 because as soon as they get to that unanimous top 1 status, immediately they lose, and now we're back in confusion. This week, I'll reveal it, but I really wish it was the Chiefs so I could jinx them. Finally, can the Ravens still make the playoffs? Let's look at the schedule. Alright, see, this first game against the Bears, they could legitimately lose here already. This could make them 1-6 right here in week 8, which is not a good look, but still technically recoverable. Then you have the Dolphins, Vikings, Browns, and Jets. They should win against all of these teams. Maybe the Vikings can pull something out, but I think Lamar Jackson will have had enough time to reacclimate himself and get back into his groove, so I think they'll be able to take those games. Then they have the Bengals, Steelers, Bengals, and they could lose one of these games. 7 losses, still can make the playoffs. And then they play the Patriots, Packers, and then at the Steelers. I don't see a way they can win enough games to make the playoffs here. Finally, the main headline. One of the most improbable comebacks have ever happened. Yes, the Broncos and the Giants faced off at Mile High Stadium, and for 3 quarters, it looked like it was an absolute beatdown. But no one expected the Broncos to drop 33 points in a single quarter and make one of the most improbable comebacks of NFL history with a 18-point deficit recovery in just 6 minutes. That is insane. I looked at a stat, and 1,602 games have been played where a scenario like this has happened, with a team leading by 18 or more points with 6 seconds left. And in every single one of those, the team leading wins. This is the first time in game 1,603 of that scenario where that has not happened. It's just insane to me. I still think the Giants can be a good team, but that defense, what happened? I'm still just so confused. Everybody's confused. This season is confusing, but that game is just one of the many, many symptoms of that fact. Now for our Week 7 awards, starting with the most improved team being the Cowboys, scoring 44 points in total. Dak Prescott is looking like an MVP candidate, and with CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens both on that team, and Javonte Williams, this is going to be a problem for all of the NFC. Biggest decline is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Went from beating the Chiefs to getting 2 pretty bad losses, with a 35-7 loss to the Rams. Let's see if they'll be able to turn it back around and maybe take a hold of this AFC South once again. Our biggest surprise is obviously the Cleveland Browns, scoring a whopping 31 points on the Miami Dolphins. I was not expecting Dylan Gabriel to do this well on only his 2nd game. But the game of the week is the Broncos at Giants game. I don't need to explain why. Snoozer of the week is Raiders at Chiefs, 0-31. The Chiefs had just as many first downs as the Raiders had plays. 30 plays for the Raiders, 30 first downs for the Chiefs. Heck, even Patrick Mahomes was trolling them, saying, "Oh, this won't work, but I'm going to try it anyways." To their faces right before the play. Just absolute mad behavior. Our MVP of the week is Jalen Hurts, after having a phenomenal game with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith having big touchdowns. He is playing great, and who knows, maybe the Eagles will have another one of their resurgencies just like they had last year. Our clutch player of the week is Bo Nix. Scoring 33 points in a quarter is crazy. Scoring that after not scoring a single time is also insane. Alright, surprise player is Joe Flacco. I was expecting him to do fairly well, but I wasn't expecting him to beat the Steelers defense, which is still good. But Joe Flacco still just has that IQ to him that is just insane. And all he has to do is play for the Steelers, and he will have played for every single AFC North team. However, I don't think he'll be staying in the NFL for much longer. Hopefully, he can hold out for Joe Burrow. Miss of the week is Tua Tagovailoa. Again, I already talked about this in the headlines, but Tua is just not it. He is not it for the Dolphins, and they need to move on. The Super Bowl prediction for this week is the Colts over the Lions. Never has my Super Bowl prediction changed this much over the course of a year, but that's just the nature of this season. I do think it's the Colts over the Lions because, yes, the Colts are the most consistent team in the league right now, only losing one game to two really bad plays from one player. Other than that, they have been super solid. And the Lions are the best team in the NFC. It feels like that changes every other week, but they beat the Buccaneers pretty handily, and despite some injuries, they are still playing really well and was able to hold Baker Mayfield, who I still think is the MVP of the year, to a very bad game. Play of the week is Austin Hooper's absolute moss of a catch over a Titans defender. And our blooper of the week, again, for the second time in a row, is from that same game. Cam Ward having an absolute blooper of a play where he tries to throw the ball, and it just comes out the back of his hand. There wasn't even any contact at that point. This is the sort of play I would make on my Pop Warner football team. And I wasn't even a quarterback. All right, now for the tier list with Super Oof tier. We have a new bottom two, which is the Las Vegas Raiders. This is an absolute dysfunctional team, and I thought they were going to be different this year after Geno Smith was there. But nope, he's made them even worse. I did not see them coming. That's why they are my bottom cold team here. The Jets are still the bottom team, and they will stay that way until they win a game, or at least get really close to winning a game against a solid team. Then come the Dolphins and the Titans, who are still in there. And Oof tier is the smallest tier, I think the smallest tier of all of my tier lists so far. The Browns, Saints, and Cardinals. I just don't know what to think of these teams anymore because, one, the Browns have a win against the Packers and the Jets, which is weird. They have some upside. Their defense is probably the best in the country. And then the Saints, every game you see them, they're not too far behind, so they seem average at first, but they keep doing that. And then the Cardinals are super close to a winning record, like I said earlier. I don't know what to think of any of these teams. Then in mid-tier, we have the Vikings and the Cold Falcons. This is the most inconsistent team in football. One game, they handily beat the Bills. The next game, they absolutely get defensively clobbered by the 49ers, who have a skeleton crew. And then we have the Giants, Panthers, and Niners, who stayed in their same position. In solid tier, we have a lot of changes. The Ravens have moved up there because they are getting Lamar Jackson back. The Texans and the Commanders are still in here. The Steelers have dropped down here from the powerhouse tier after a pretty heartbreaking loss to the Bengals. The Cold Chargers, there have been too many games where they did not play up to par. The Bengals are on the rise. They are our bottom hot team right now after Joe Flacco proved that he can run with one of the best defenses in the league, and maybe he can hold out for Joe Burrow to take over in the playoffs and win some games. And then the Jaguars have dropped down, not below the Bengals. The powerhouse tier, we have the Broncos, who hold on to this spot. If they had lost that bad, they might be in mid-tier right now, but they're still here. They're still standing. I don't know if that's going to change. Cowboys are our hot team in this tier, on the rise after Dak Prescott had a phenomenal game after getting CeeDee Lamb back. The Bears have also risen into this tier after I contemplated it for a long time. Then the Bills, Patriots, Eagles stay in this same spot, and the Packers just barely drop out because they are just not beating easy teams well enough. Now, finally, the Juggernaut tier, we have the Bucks, Seahawks, the Rams, who are on fire after having a really good game against the Jaguars offensively and defensively. Then come the Lions, Chiefs, and Colts. All right, now for this week's predictions. Let's get the easy games out of the way. We've got the Bengals, Patriots, Buccaneers, and the Colts all getting easy wins. I don't really have to explain why. The rest of these could turn out either way. This Thursday night football game, we've got the Vikings at the Chargers. This is going to be close, but I think the Vikings will be able to pull it off as J.J. McCarthy returns. Hopefully he can utilize Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison to finally propel their offense to beat this Chargers defense that has been playing pretty inconsistently as of late. The Sunday early game, the Falcons should definitely get a win here. The Dolphins are so dysfunctional, but the Falcons have been super inconsistent this year. So we'll have to see if the Dolphins can get their second win here. Next is the Giants at the Eagles. Giants, after having that huge shock, I don't think are going to be able to win over the Eagles. The Eagles are coming back to their convincing winning ways last season after a slow start, just like last season. So who knows what will happen there. Next, the Bills at the Panthers. Bills should get a win here, but that's what I said against the Falcons, so I'm not so sure anymore. Next, the Bears at the Ravens. This is going to be a statement of whether or not Lamar Jackson can keep this team alive in the playoff run, but I don't think they will, and I think the Bears, with their incredible offense and pretty good defense, will be able to hold them off and win at the Ravens Stadium. Next, the 49ers and the Texans. No clue. This is a coin flip for me, but personally, I think Christian McCaffrey will be able to do enough. Mac Jones maybe will be able to get a few more points, and yes, the Texans' defense is pretty good, but their offense, not as much. The only Sunday late game that I think will be remotely close, the Cowboys at the Broncos. This one's going to be pretty tough, but I think I'm going to have to take the Cowboys here. Their offense is just too good right now, and I don't think the Broncos will be able to keep up, but who knows? They were able to pull off the impossible last week. Now for a Sunday night game, it should be the Packers. I think Aaron Rodgers will be able to put up a solid game and maybe even win, making him the 6th ever quarterback to be able to beat every team in the NFL. But the Packers have just got the better team overall on offense and defense. On Monday, we've got the Commanders at the Chiefs, and the Chiefs should get a win here. Jaden Daniels will not be playing. Patrick Mahomes is on a high. This should be an easy game, but who knows what can happen. Commanders were able to make some magic happen last year right around here against the Bears, but maybe they'll make it work against the Chiefs. Alright, thank you again for watching this video. If you've made it all the way to the end and you enjoyed it, please give me a subscribe and a like. We are starting to get some consistency back into our upload schedule, and I've got some more extra videos coming up that are not weekly videos. Stay tuned for that. And with that, I'll see you next week.